Hello YouTube, my name is Daniel and welcome back to another video. This is the 5th video in my Android Pokédex series. So in the last video we created the map view fragment and the saved list fragment. In this video we're going to be creating the list fragment and the detail fragment. So on the fragments package we're going to right click new Kotlin file and we'll call this fragment list fragment. We will copy and paste from the saved list fragment as it's going to be pretty similar, just some pagination stuff, but nothing too different. And then we're just going to go through and then change all the names. So saved list fragment will be list fragment. Layout will be fragment underscore list. View model will be list view model. Binding will be fragment list binding. And if we just replace the binding here, for the variables, the saved list adapter will just be Pokemon list adapter. There won't be a count. Saved list will become Pokemon list, and we will have a Boolean value for pagination called should paginate equals true. And now we can get rid of some of the unneeded imports. And we can get rid of all the stuff in the onCreate. And then we're going to call 5 functions. First one will be setup RV. Second will be setup clicks. Next will be setup search view, setup fab buttons, and these will be for the navigation. And the last one will be init. For the setup RV function, we'll just get rid of all the code in here, and the first thing we will do is initialize our adapter. Then we need to set up the click listeners. So Pokemon list adapter dot set on click listener. This will be an object Pokemon list adapter dot on click listener. And if we just add the brackets and then implement the methods to override, and on click we will create a bundle, just like in the saved fragment. Put the bundle, put the Pokemon in the bundle under the string Pokemon. And then navigate to that fragment. So r.id.action list fragment to detail fragment, and then pass in the bundle. Then we can set up the recycler view. So binding dot list fragment RV dot apply, and we want to assign the adapter, and we want to add an on scroll listener for when the recycler view reaches the bottom, so then we can paginate and fetch the next items. So this will be a recycler view onScroll listener, and we just need to instantiate that. And if we press Ctrl O on Windows and we want to implement the onScroll state changed method, and we will have an if function here stating if recycler view cannot scroll vertically, and that the search view is empty. So the query, and if both those are true, we will call binding dot list paginate progress bar dot visibility equals view dot visible, and that will show our progress bar. And then we will call view model dot get next page. And that's it for the onScroll listener. And now we can set up the swipe to refresh for the top of the recycler view, so we can fetch new items. So we want to call these set on refresh listener, and we just want to check again if the search view query is empty, and then we will call view model get Pokemon list. Otherwise, we will just set the refreshing value to false. And that is it for the setup recycler view function. And just briefly, in the onResume, we need to just call fetch Pokemon. So view model dot get Pokemon list, just to make sure that when we go back to this fragment, we refresh the Pokemon. The next function we will create is set up click listeners. So that will be private fun set up clicks. And this will just set the click listener for the filter. So filter img set on click listener. And that will create a dialog, which will be our filter dialog. Pass in the listener and now we can create the transaction for the navigation, which will be child fragment manager dot begin transaction, transaction dot add, dialog, and then we just need to put a tag, so filter dialog, and then we just need to commit the transaction. And we just need to make sure this is implementing the filter listener. So if we go up to here and add in our filter dialog dot filter listener, and then implement the methods. So for the type to search, we don't want to paginate the list of results, because we'll be searching via a filter and there won't be that many. So we're going to set should paginate to false, and we will return all of the Pokemon that equal that type. And we will call Pokemon.listAdapter dot set list dot submit list, and pass in filter, and this will be a method that we'll create in a sec. Filter list by type, and pass in the type that we get from the listener, and we'll just create that function down here. Filter list by type. Type will be a string, and this will return a list of custom Pokemon item, and just return Pokemon list dot filter it dot type equals type, and that will return all of the Pokemon that have that type assigned. And we also need to create another function for filtering by name for when we are searching using the search view, and that will just call it.name contains name, and delete this equals type here. And now we can go back to setting up the search view. This won't take any parameters. And first off, we're going to set up the click listener. So binding list fragment search view dot set on click listener. And first off, we're going to check if the search query is empty. So is empty, and then we'll submit an empty list to the recycler view and fetch the next Pokemon. And now we will set the query listener for when a user is searching. So list fragment search view dot set on query text listener. We pass in the object search view dot on query text listener, and now we need to implement the members. So on text submit and on text change. For the on text submit, we want to check if so for the parameters, we just want to change PO to query, and PO here also to query. For the on query submit, we want to check if query is not null. We're going to set the list. So submit list, filter list by name, and then pass in the query. Otherwise, we will set the list to empty, and select get Pokemon list. And at the bottom, we just need to put return false. Next, for the on query text change, we're just going to check if the text is not null. So if query is not null, we will update the recycler view. So submit list, filter list by name, and pass in the query. And after that, we will return false. Okay, I think I've got an import error with the search view, so just make sure you're using the Android Android X app compact search view and not the other one, but I'm going to make sure that I'm using the correct one. So not the widget.search view. So we'll just leave that there because it will work. It's just the import that's messing up. So that's the set up search view function. Now we can move on to set up the fab buttons. I'll just create that function here, private fun. So for the fab buttons, we just want to access them using the binding. So for the map fab button, that will navigate to our map fragment. So r.id.action. List fragment to map view fragment. And we can just copy and paste this again for the other fab button, which is the saved fab, and that is going to navigate to the saved view fragment. So now that's done, we can sort out the observer function. So first off, with the Pokemon list, we just want to import observer here, and it will be the life cycle one. So we're still going to check if the list is not empty, and what we will do is we will assign the Pokemon list, so list.data, as array list custom Pokemon list item, and we will call update list. And this will add our custom Pokemon items to the list of the recycler view. So if we're doing a sort of pagination, so we're just going to put in list.data to make sure this is aligned correctly. Then we will call Pokemon list adapter .notify dataset change to refresh the recycler view. And now we're just going to check if the swipe to refresh was used. So is refreshing, we'll just set to false. And in here we will just also hide the progress bar. And if there is an error here, we will just hide the progress bar again and then show our empty recycler view error, which is the function we will create in a sec. For resource.error, we will do the same thing. For resource.expired, we're going to do nothing here. And for the resource.loading, we'll just show progress bar to true. And now we'll just create those functions. So private fun show empty recycler view error. And that will just show a toast message. Pass in the context. The message will be no items found. The length of the toast message will be short. And then we'll just show that toast message. And we'll just create one for show progress bar, which will take a Boolean value. And what we'll do here is we'll just set the progress bar to to that value. And we'll also make sure that the pagination progress bar is hidden. So the visibility equals view.com. We don't need the function for deleting Pokemon, or this one here. And that is it for our list fragment. We can now move on to the detail page. Just remove these unneeded imports. So for the detail page, it's probably better just to copy and paste the map fragment, as we're not going to need any lists in here. So we'll select new Kotlin class and call this detail fragment. Just copy and paste. Then rename the fragment, and this will be called fragment detail. Binding will be fragment detail binding, and the view model will be detail view model. Change the binding here, and we'll have one variable up here for our Pokemon object. So we'll just call that Pokemon, and that will be a custom list Pokemon item, and this will be a late init var, and get rid of all the stuff in the onCreate. And now we're going to check if a Pokemon was passed in as an argument. So arguments.let, and then we will get our Pokemon object through getPassable, and we'll pass in the type, which is the custom Pokemon list item, and the key, which is Pokemon. And then we can initialize the Pokemon here. We'll just call this Pokemon. And after assigning our Pokemon, we can set the type. So Pokemon.type, and we'll just call this type. And we'll just call this function, which we will set up in a second, called setType, and just pass it in here. Next we can set up the name, so that'll be binding dot title dot text equals Pokemon dot name dot capitalize, and we just want to replace it for the function they recommend us here, so just like that. And we'll just call this char for the first character. And then we will call get Pokemon details, which is a function we will create later. And that will be done from the API ID, and then we'll just call the init observer function. And then we're just going to make sure if this Pokemon is initialized, and we want to check if it's saved or not. So if Pokemon is saved, equals false. Then we can set up the click listener for the save button. And that will set the Pokemon is saved to true. And we will call vmol.savePokemon, pass in the Pokemon, and set the text for the button to saved. And then otherwise, we'll just set it to saved. Just got an error here. Just do with the quote marks, and that is it for the onCreate. And now we can start setting up the other functions. So for the setType function, that will just take the type as a parameter, and set up the text view. And that will equal type I'm just going to call capitalize and just use that function we used earlier, and that will set up the type. And next we have a function called getPokemonDetails, so we'll call that here. So private fun getPokemonDetails, pass in the ID, which will be an int. This could be null, and we're just going to check if the ID is not null. Get the Pokemon details from the view model. And it's saying it's requiring a string, so there must be an issue here. We can just quickly change that. So int, and then just get rid of this toInt function here. And we go back to the detail fragment, and that is it for the getDetails function. And now we can set up the observer, and we will call it details. Let's get rid of all of the stuff in here. And just make sure you import in the correct observer. So I was importing the wrong one. Right, so if this is successful, we want to call Pokemon, so details.data .let, and we will set up the view, which is a function we'll create in a sec. If it's an error, we'll just make a toast and just say no Pokemon details found. And then for is resource expired, for loading we won't do anything here. We don't need the show progress function. But for the expired one, we will set up the view again and just show a toast message just saying that the details have expired, and there may be an issue fetching the up-to-date information. So set up view, pass in the Pokemon, and then show a toast message just like up here, and just say unable. And now we will create the setup view function. So have a private fun setup view, and this will take Pokemon details, which will be a Pokemon detail item. Now first off, we're going to load the Pokemon image into the image view. So Pokemon details dot sprites dot other sprites dot artwork dot front default, and we're just going to check if that's not null, and then we're going to call our image utils dot load image, pass in the image view, which will be detail fragment image, and pass in the URL, and that will set up the image for us. Now we're going to load up the abilities. So this will need a for each loop. So for I in Pokemon details dot abilities, we will create a text view for each ability, and the text will be I dot ability dot name dot capitalize, next we set the text size to 15F, the text color to white, and then the layout params which will be linear layout dot layout params, and this will be wrap content for both. So view group dot layout params dot wrap content, and then we want to add this view to our relative layouts. So binding dot abilities container dot add view, and pass in the text view. Next we will set up our stats. So this will need another loop, which will be for I in Pokemon dot stat, and this will create another text view. So I'm just going to copy and paste some of this code here. So we'll create a text view, and next we will create a progress bar. And we want the theme of it to be progress bar style horizontal for a horizontal progress bar. And now we're going to set up the progress. So progress bar dot progress equals I dot base stat or 0. Next we want to set up the tint, so the color of the progress bar. So that'll be progress tint list, now be color state list dot value of, color.white. Next, the text view text will be i.stat.name, and then we will capitalize that as well. The text size will still be 15. That will stay the same, and this will stay the same as well. And then we want to add it to the view. So binding.stats container, add view, and we'll pass in the text view. And then the binding stats container, add view, and we'll pass in the progress bar. Next, we'll set up the stars for the Pokemon. So this is the stars on the top right of the Pokemon card. 1 star for a weak Pokemon, 2 stars for a medium strength Pokemon, and then 3 stars for a high strength Pokemon. And this is done by taking the average of all of their stats. So in order to get the average, first off, we need to create a list of the Pokemon stats up here. So we'll call that Pokemon stats. And that is going to be a mutable list of int. And in this for loop, we just want to add each individual stat to this list. So that will be i.baseStat. Make sure it's not null. Pokemon stats dot add it. We just need to initialize that list. And in order to get the average, we will call Pokemon stats.sum and then divide that by 6, as there are 6 different stats. So first off, we need to set up the size for each star, so that would be dp, and we will use 40 and then times context. So require context dot resources dot display metrics density, and cast that to an int. And then we will call this function here, which we will create later, which will be add star to container, and that will be passing in the DP. And now we're going to check if Pokemon average is greater than 60. We will add another star to that container, which will be 2, and then we're just going to check if it's greater than 79, and then we'll add the third. And now we'll plot the image on the map, so that will be Pokemon image dot let. And we'll call image utils dot load image, and pass in the image view, which is binding dot map view plot, and then the URL. And now we want to plot the Pokemon on that map, so that will be image utils dot set margins, pass in the view, which is the map plot. And then the values, and we get these from the recycler view, and we get these from the view model, which are just done at random because the Pokemon could of course be moving on the map at any time. And now we're just going to create the add star to container function, and this will take dp value, which will be an int, and this will create an image, and we need to assign layout params for this, which will be linear layout dot layout params, and pass in the values for the height and width. Image dot layout params will equal those layout params, and now we can call load drawable, and we pass in the image view, which will be the image, and the drawable, which is r.drawable.star, and then we'll call binding.detail fragment star container dot add view, and then pass in the image. And there's it for the add star to container function, and we've got an error here which we just need to resolve, and to get rid of this error it needs to be lowercase, so mutable list of int, just like that. And also when we save the Pokemon we want to send a toast message, so that will just be toast.makeText, and just pass in the context and the message, which will be Pokemon has been saved to your deck, and then the length, which will just be short, and then just show the toast message. Let's get rid of that error here. Yep, so just show. And that is it for the detail fragment, and we should now be ready to test the app. So I'm just going to remove these unneeded imports, run the app, and we'll see if we have any issues. Right, so after testing I did find a few issues. So firstly, in the API interface, this in the API package, we need to make sure we're passing this path here and have this annotation. So we need @get and then this path here, API v2 Pokemon, and this will pass in the ID using the path annotation. Otherwise you won't be able to fetch any Pokemon. The next bit is the saved view fragment. This was originally called saved list fragment. It should be renamed to saved view fragment, and this needs to match up with what we have in the nav graph, and that is under the navigation folder in the res directory, so it should be called saved view fragment. And the last thing, in the main repository implementation, where we are setting the get Pokemon list next page, under return resource.success we should be returning the Pokemon list and not reading from the DB. If we read from the DB, it will show us the old Pokemon when we're paginating, so it will show like the first Pokemon in the list when we're scrolling down. We don't want that, we just want these new additional Pokemon. So just make it sure it returns resource.success Pokemon list. The full working code will be in the GitHub, so you can just grab it from there. I'm just correcting the mistakes that I made in the video. So if we start up the app, we should see our splash screen come in, and then the Pokemon item should load. So we've got the splash screen, we've got our progress bar, and we can see our Pokemon items have loaded. We've got the image, we've got the type, we've got the name as well. Let's just make sure we can search for that. So if we type in Saw, you can see those are still there. And if we type in Charmander, so that's there as well. So that's the search working absolutely fine. We can then filter for, let's say, grass type, and that's working absolutely fine, and water type as well, and fire, so that's all working fine. If we go over to the map fragment, we can see the Pokemon are all plotted randomly on our map, and if we go over to the saved fragment, we can see we don't have any saved Pokemon, but we can go into here and we can see our detail view is all working correctly. So our statistics are showing, our abilities, our type, the star as well, and the image. And then we can save the Pokemon. And we just also want to make sure that a 2-star Pokemon is showing 2-star. And we'll just save this one as well, and that a 3-star Pokemon is showing the 3 stars, which it is, and that is absolutely perfect. So if we go back and now to our saved Pokemon, we can see these two in the list. If we delete one of them, we can see it disappears, and we also have the option to delete all the Pokemon, which it also does. So now if we go back to the list view, we can just scroll down and make sure that pagination is working. So if we scroll down to the bottom item, we can see that the next set of Pokemon has been fetched. And if we just keep scrolling, we can see that it will continue to fetch new Pokemon whenever we reach the bottom of the list. And we can see that is working absolutely fine. So that is the app complete. If you have any questions, please post them down in the comments. Please make sure to check out the completed code in the GitHub if you have any issues as well. Please like the video and please subscribe.